Drinking and podcasting. I know Sleepwalker here is straight edge. Are you straight edge, Brett?
Yeah, yes.
So, yep, I am drinking all by myself today. We before the episode, we were talking a little bit about physics and yeah, really interesting characters today. So we have Brett Clarin from Sorrow, the band that was on Roadrunner Records. And more recently, he was doing his project Journey into Darkness, Black Metal project. And even more recent than that, he's been delving into trailer music. He's built his own home studio, really exceeding expectations with that. He's been on the WWE, he's been in the NFL. All his music is making its rounds all over the place. So, Brett Clarin, very happy to have you on today to talk about soundtracks.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And we also have Luke, aka Sleepwalker from A Transylvanian Funeral and Temple of Abraxis. Luke, he's been on the podcast a couple times before, and he's also he runs Absolute Audio Recording Studio in Fort Wayne, Indiana now. He's relocated up there. And with that, he's also done quite a few soundtracks. I guess the most popular soundtracks he's done is for the video game Project Warlock 1 and 2, which is one of those boomer shooters like Doom and Quake and all that. So, Luke, great to have you back.
Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Jason.
Yes, great guy. If you don't know about Luke, he ran Forbidden Records, Forbidden Magazine, Forbidden Radio, all that back in the day. And he's actually the guy who released the first GoCraft album, All for Naught, and he kind of put my project there on the map. So I have nothing but great things to say about Luke. So anyway, the main subject today is soundtracks, and we've kind of chatted a little bit offline, at least Brett and I have, about how we wanted to tackle this episode. So it'd be kind of boring just to talk about gear and it's like, oh wow, metal musician doing soundtracks now. Wow. Like I don't think we would get much interest and people would click away pretty quickly if we just delved into like a modus operandi like that. But so I think it's really interesting when we talk about like soundtracks, and Brett mentioned this in chat that it's more about you're trying to portray like the mood of like physical phenomena, like visual phenomena, like what's happening on the screen, or in Luke's case, a video game, and really trying to capture like bringing in the atmosphere of that in audio form. Brett, like I know this is kind of a cookie cutter question, but um, h- why did you get into doing like trailer music and all of that? Was it because you got really proficient with Journey into Darkness, doing the keyboards with VSTs and all that, and you wanted to take that to a different type of medium to perhaps capitalize on it?
Yeah, I mean, first let me define trailer music for people who not totally sure what that is. I mean, effectively, it's just movie trailers. When you listen to the sound, like the sound of those movie trailers are always very large, very bombastic, a lot of kind of sound effects going on, and it's just very high energy and high emotion, right? They're trying to get you to see a movie. So there's that whole aspect of energy and epicness that really kind of overlaps with metal and symphonic metal, and you know I guess symphonic black metal to some degree also. So I got back in the 90s. I actually started the Journey into Darkness as a synth only project, and I was always thinking about like getting into soundtracks or video game music, and I kind of always just got sidetracked and never got around to it. And then back 2018, 2019, I started messing around with it again and got really serious with it and said, okay, I want to put out Journey into Darkness again, but I want it to be black metal. I want guitars and heaviness, not just the synth stuff. And yeah, as you said, I started getting very proficient at the production at it, um, becoming very efficient with programming virtual instruments, and just learning a lot about production. And the more I learned and the more I did it, I've always enjoyed listening to the trailer music, and all the, again, the epicness of it. And it kind of just seems, a natural path for me. I just started writing it on my own and got drawn to it. I mean, some of the other stuff I do is just not really trailer music. It's just background music and underscore for TV shows and whatnot and sporting events. So that's not as epic, but a lot of the production and special effects and sound effects come into it. So that's kind of the liaison. That's how I got into it.
I see. I see. So, um, but going from black metal to soundtracks, that was just like a logical conclusion. You had worked with, a lot of VSTs with Journey into Darkness and thought that, hey, I could just do this on its own and perhaps, license it out for things, or was it that type of logic, or was it something that, obviously your music sounds super professional. I know you've been all over the place with WWE and NFL and TV shows and whatnot. There was perhaps a lot of, studying you had to do on, VSTs and trailer music and all that to, kind of organize your approach to execute it, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, because trailer music is the hardest simple music you'll ever write because the production level of it is really very, very, I don't know, I'm not going to say hard, but it takes a lot of practice. And I did a lot of reading up and studying. I took a couple of special courses. I've done one-on-ones with people who are experts in trailer music. And uh, the Journey into Darkness stuff, yeah, with a lot of that background atmosphere and learning how to do string arrangements and orchestration, um, it just lended itself very well to getting over into trailer music. And it was also a way of me saying, hey, what can I do outside of black metal, outside of that, and still allow me to, play with all these instruments and uh, take all the stuff that I've learned and put it to use. And there was a lot of theory I had to learn. So yeah, there was a tremendous amount of preparation, but half of it was already done when I started doing the JID stuff again.
I see, I see. I think theory is one of those things that some people can intuitively pick up on it and understand what works, like with having like resolving chord progressions and all of that. Whereas a lot of other people they have to formally learn it. And when you listen to a lot of metal bands that don't know dick shit about theory, it's kind of out there in the open. It's like, yeah, these guys are jamming on the guitars. They may not know like the more heady stuff of organizing music. It's more about like the mood and feeling they're trying to portray. But Luke, you've also made that transition from video game or black metal to video game music soundtracks. Uh, did you follow a similar path to Brett? I know, just to say this out, out and about, I've heard a lot of other uh black metal musicians as well as dungeon synth people say like it's their dream to do soundtracks for movies and video games and all that, but they don't have the same drive that you and Brett have, actually studying theory, getting into the nitty-gritty of production, all of that to actually solidify some sort of expression in that medium. Is more just like they dick around with keyboards and whatnot, but they're not really invested in it that much to actually realize an expression. So was your journey into soundtracks similar to Brett's, where you had to do some studying and perhaps take a course or two on how to realize that?
Um, I think that there's definitely some similarities. I got into doing video games really because I went to high school with a kid who played a lot of games online with another kid in Poland, and they became friends. And the kid in Poland said, "Hey, I'm going to make a game. Do you think you can make some music?" And the kid I went to school with eventually asked me to join because there were some deadlines that weren't getting met, and I had a lot more production experience, and it really worked out. And that was kind of my foot in the door. I didn't necessarily proactively seek it out, and in hindsight, I probably should have. Um, but I think that kind of just to what you said, I've always just kind of been a very extreme person. I'm kind of all in or all out, you know, and I've done enough with black metal since I released my first, you know, product or whatever on Forbidden Records 15 years ago or whatever it was. I feel like I need to do something different to stay interested occasionally. And I'm in my studio. I've got 20 some odd hardware synthesizers. I've got 6 guitars. So obviously I'm more into the keyboards right now. And
Holy shit! Yeah, 20. I have two.
it's
I
a
have
fucking mess. Yeah.
I have a Korg Triton and a Korg Kronos. That's all I got.
Well, good for you. Yeah, and that's awesome. My main keyboard was a Korg Triton, the 88, and I recently just got the new Arturia MIDI controller because I'm a huge Arturia fan. I've used that forever with their software stuff, but that's just kind of where I am. And I mean, to kind of go back to what you're saying is I've always taken it seriously. I'm always going to invest in myself. And that doesn't just mean buying gear. I tell clients at my job all the time, use the fucking gear you have. Figure out how to get a good sound out of $100 microphone before you convince yourself you need a $2,000 one. So, investing in yourself means sit down and learn your equipment, teach yourself new skills, whether it's software or whatever, and because everybody's got a laptop and everybody's got software sense, but knowing how to use them is different. So with the recent games, I have pushed the developers and the teams to get into more responsive audio, like with WIs and Fmod, and more integration in the games, but the budget and the time frames that we've been locked in have never been there. So I went out and I taught myself Fmod the best I could. It's like, here's what I can do. If you want to implement this, let's do it. But hopefully it'll happen on the next game. Hasn't happened on Project Warlock, and it's just never been my decision to make because it's all time and money with these sorts of projects. But I'm always going to go out and teach myself the best skills I can to not dick around, as you put it. You know, I'm not dicking around about it. So
Yeah, yeah. I never would insinuate you have, like, even with your black metal. I remember the first time heard a Transylvanian Funeral before we had even, corresponded with each other before you were interested in GoCraft. I had heard your project, and there was a little record shop in San Antonio called Black Death Covenant Records, and after hours, we would, close shop and have drinks and, blast black metal, and you came up in the mix and everyone fucking loved it. Uh, but regardless, like, I do feel like where it comes to, you guys are really keyboard heavy individuals, as am I. Like, I have a grand piano downstairs, and that's my preferred keyboard instrument, like actually playing real piano. Um, and I feel that if you actually physically play, it just, you feel it more. Like, of course, you feel the vibrations and all that from the piano, but it's the dynamics, it's your everything involved with actually performing on piano. And that makes you, at least for me, it makes me really connect with the music that I'm playing. Whereas a lot of musicians, I'm not trying to throw Brett under the table if he composes like this. It's more like MIDI, where they just have their DAW up, and they just, like, with their mouse they start organizing sounds and all that, and which notes they're playing without actually playing the material, like, physically. It's more like a, just figuring out through, trial and error with clicking around. Brett, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus if that's your
Yeah.
method. How do you approach? Do you physically play like on a MIDI controller, or?
Well, a little bit of both, but I definitely will. I do a lot more programming these days, but I'll preface that with saying that, listen, I played guitar for a long time. I'm not a good keyboardist, but I can sit down and I know my way around the keyboard. I'm just not good at it. But having played an instrument or two instruments, you pick up certain things, certain nuances about just playing an instrument live, and that makes you a better programmer, right? Just the experience of playing and trying to take the stuff as a guitar player or just as a musician and saying, okay, I know that to put feeling and emotion into this music, there are certain things that you have to do, and I've learned actually how to sort of, to some degree, program that into MIDI. So I will sometimes, some of the parts I'll play in by hand. I'll play the MIDI keyboard. My timing is not the greatest, so I'll always have to edit a little bit. And sometimes I'm trying to, work on new music, and I have to play around on my guitar or play around on the keyboard to come up with some more melodies, some harmonies, or some rhythms. And then I'll get, once I get that down, typically then I'll start on the MIDI and start messing around and making it sound better, and then adding all the extra stuff to it. So it's a combination of both. And sometimes I just sit down with the MIDI because I have a tune kind of in my head and I kind of know what it sounds like, and I'm able to construct that through MIDI. So that was the long answer. The short answer is I do use both.
I see, I see. How about you, Sleepwalker? Do you primarily just play everything on keyboards and guitar and all that, and mix it down, or is some of it working with the DAW with MIDI and clicking and adjusting notes and fixing things that way?
My goal is to work really as fast as I can. I have to have an equilibrium, that sweet spot between the time that I spend doing it and the quality of the production that I put out. So I have to, it takes me, a half hour to warm up my hands if I'm playing a guitar or keyboards and get my ears warmed up. And then if I spend 3 or 4 or 5 hours working on the same track, I start to have a decline in my, my ears get fatigued. You get a little frustrated with where you're at if you're not moving forward. Staying in the zone, staying in a flow state is what I'm trying to capture, whatever comes out of that flow state. So um, I'm not a proficient keyboardist. I can make chords with two hands and know enough theory to talk about circle of fifths, barely. But I can write a song and then go back and edit MIDI. I've been editing MIDI for 20 some odd years, and I'm comfortable with it. I can program drums, but I use a lot of pre-made like drum patterns from Superior Drummer or whatever the software I've got in front of me is. So the goal is to just work fast and not get hung up and never think, oh, I'm not a good keyboardist, so I shouldn't play keyboards. I mean, I've never let that stop me. So I lean heavily on my studio. I'll put it that way. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not ashamed to say that in the least regard. So,
Well, I'm not trying to shit on you guys for not physically playing the music 100%, because that is industry standard, is to use MIDI. There's a shit ton of producers out there, well-known producers, who sit down with MIDI and compose that way, rather than actually playing. So I'm not trying to cast any shade at you guys in that regard. I know even like Hans Zimmer does that, so there's that aspect, and he's like one of the oh, that's a good question. So for soundtracks, I know it's kind of cookie cutter shit, but I really, when it came out with the Inception soundtrack, granted it's not classical music. I love classical music like Wagner, Bruckner, and all that, but when the Inception soundtrack came out, I thought it was really good. Like background music. Of course, that song "Time" is super popular now. I see it all over the place on the internet, behind videos and all that. But do you guys have any specific soundtracks that you guys like a lot, or like what's your thought on that? Just like the black metal musicians looking outward to soundtrack music, like what really resonates with you? I know like the Blade Runner soundtrack's really good. I know quite a few, like you can even say like shit like Kraftwerk, where there's four guys with keyboards out there creating electronic soundtracks, things like that. Like, is there anything specifically out there that other people have done, like the Juno Reactor guy doing the Matrix soundtrack or anything like that? Is there anything like special that you've heard out there that is worthwhile for people to check out?
Um, I'll cheese out and say Harry Potter. I mean, it's cheesy, it's whatever, but I actually do like the soundtrack to all those films, and it has a very mystical fantasy type of quality to it. And um, I like it. I mean, what can you do? I admit it, and I do. I am not ashamed of it. They're good. It's good stuff. Um, Something that was interesting, the Hellraiser, when the first Hellraiser was supposed to be written by Coil. If you know, it's a electronic band from the 80s, 90s, and there's a CD out that they put out because they actually didn't end up doing the soundtrack for Hellraiser, but they released a 15-minute EP of the songs that were supposed to be on there, and it's great. It's not, it's not classical at all. It's very synth heavy, but very atmospheric. Very I don't know. There's a lot of emotion into it. It's a great one. I would seek that out for people to check out.
Very cool. How about you, Luke?
I was hoping to come up with a intelligent response while Brett was responding there, because I've been thinking about this all week ever since you invited me. I was like, well, what soundtracks do I even really like? And I just really don't know, man, to be honest. I don't know if it's because I've got like half a headache today or just what, but I've been like thinking about this, and I've never been really that big into movies 100% as much as like books and music and stuff like that, or games, I guess. So, I mean, right now I'm watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I think I watched it when it came out, so 20 years later, I'm revisiting it. The music for that's cool. You mentioned Kraftwerk. I used to listen to Kraftwerk, 20 years ago. I had a CD of theirs, and it was totally different than anything else any of my friends were listening to or what I was listening to. I like
I have a funny story about Kraftwerk. But I can wait if you want to keep going.
well, I was going to mention Klaus Schultz as well, or Klaus Schultz, who's done tons and tons of albums. I think he was in Tangerine Dream, and he's entirely synthesizer based. And if you listen to his stuff, it's like your life becomes a movie. Everything you're doing, it's like an accompaniment. It's the most, I don't know. It's really good stuff. It inspires me. I know John Carpenter is pretty popular with doing a lot of his own music. The only movie that I'm really familiar with that he did was They Live. Um, and I know he did the music for that one. He did Big Trouble in Little China, which does not have as good of a soundtrack, but it's still good for the movie and what it is. So
Well, he has a metal project too that he has like distorted guitars with like soundtracky stuff
Mhm.
going on. And he's doing pretty well with that.
yeah,
But getting back to Kraftwerk, I'm sorry for the guy I'm going to mention has been out of the metal scene for quite a few years, but there's this guy Larry that I know, and people from Texas probably know who I'm talking about because I went shooting with Larry, and that guy's a maniac. Like we went out into the outside of Austin, just shooting targets, and that guy got super into it, like laying on his belly like a sniper, and but he became a gunsmith, and he left the metal scene, build guns and all that. But Larry, one of the best drummers in Texas, hands down, before he ruined his hands being a gunsmith. The guys from Discords from California were in Texas, and I guess they got super stoned, and Larry put on Kraftwerk, and it freaked one of them out. Like he had like this existential crisis, and
nice.
like one of the guys from Discord like completely flipped the fuck out over Kraftwerk. It was hilarious hearing about that. Where you listen to Discord, is supposed to be the most brutal of death metal out there, but here he is like freaking out over Boing Buchot or We Are the Robots or
Yeah,
fun 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 at the Autobahn.
that's
um yeah, funny story there. As you guys were talking, I did scribe down a couple of questions here. And I apologize. I I felt like drinking today. I know Shelly's not here, so I don't have my comrade in alcohol there. He has a lot going on, and he's currently traveling back to Leeds from London. So he's not here today, but something like soundtracks like portray like physical or visual phenomena. with music has always been there, even since the Baroque period of music. There's a French composer who composed a ballet, actually. It's hilarious that it's a ballet, but it's a composer named Rebel, Rebel. And the beginning of his ballet suite, the Elements, it starts with like the most dissonant shit. It's the most like progressive shit from the Baroque period. It's just all this dissonance and very, very metal as fuck. And eventually it's very, very super progressive for the time it came out. It was late Baroque period. And he portrays water, air, chaos itself through sound. And that sentiment has kind of existed, ever since. And music and listeners who probably may know of earlier instances of sound painting or whatnot, however you want to call it. And there is a proper term for it. I forget, maybe sound painting, where like even Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, he portrays nature and a storm, coming into the pasture and all that, and you can kind of hear the little animals running away, seeking shelter as the storm rolls in, and it turns into a big monsoon. But also the most blaring example would be the Richard Wagner, with his take, on absolute music, combining opera with full scale like theatrics and uh, huge orchestral movements. Uh, he was really influenced by Schopenhauer's. He didn't really truly live up to the Schopenhauerian ideal of what music should be in a non-programmatic sense. Yeah, like Schopenhauer believed that absolute music is the highest ideal with no lyrics, nothing that reminds you of physical phenomena. But anyway, he really inspired Wagner, who did focus on physical phenomena, and you can hear that quite a bit with some of his movements and his operas, especially the Ring Cycle, where there's lightning and all that coming down, thunder, where he portrays physical phenomena through the orchestra. How do you guys like? What's your approach to creating music that is really conducive to the aspect of like visual representation of things happening, like in a video game for you, Luke, or for trailer music for you, Brett? Like what's the difference between your approaches to black metal to producing soundtracks where it's something that there should be a visual component to it rather than just sheer music? Anyone can jump in, whoever's ready.
Go ahead,
I'll
Brett.
go. Go ahead, Luke.
Well, I would, one of the best things one of the pieces of advice, I don't know if it was the best, but I remember it, good or bad, was that if you're going to use reverb in a track, you should make the reverb present, but not to where people actually notice it. It's there to lift up the music. And I think the music is there to lift up whatever visual engagement or video game engagement, whatever the emotion or the story that's being told on the screen. The music has to complement that, and it's difficult to do because everyone's got their own paradigm and their conscious makeup of what they think a scene would look like, or you're trying to kind of get inside somebody's head, the viewer. So um, I think music is most effective when it's experienced as not separate from the video, from whatever else is going on. If you just sit and you listen to a stereo and you're listening to a record that came out in the 70s and that's all you're doing, you know, that's cool. If you're listening to like the Black Sabbath album, that's fine. But if there was a movie to go with it, you want that music to not distract, you want it to complement. And that's kind of the challenge that a person has. I like to have music that, like on Project Warlock 2, they wanted metal songs. That first we started out a couple years ago, they wanted songs that were 2 and 3 minutes long. I said, okay, that's easy. And then as the game progressed, they're like, so we're going to make the levels 10 times bigger. Can you write like 15-minute songs? I was like, sure, but it's going to not just be thrash metal the entire time. There's going to be other stuff. And what that allowed me to do is to push and pull the emotions of the gamer or the listener. And hopefully it's if we go from a very quiet synthesizer based pad that's just kind of hanging out with ambience, and it progresses into full blown thrash metal, that progression should be natural. And I say all that to reiterate the point is that it should stand apart and complement. If it was, if there was a transition of 30 seconds or 2 minutes and you say, oh, now it's thrashing metal, I didn't even notice. How did I get here from the ambient piece of this crazy blast beat? Then it worked. If it feels dissonant and disconnected, then the goal did not get accomplished.
You know what? You raised a really fucking great point there that the music should complement. It shouldn't distract from what's happening. And that is something that I have issues with movies with when the soundtracks come in. And if it's overly like sentimental or overly like nostalgic, anything like that, the soundtrack itself, like perhaps because I'm a musician, it really like takes me out of the movie and I'm just focusing straight on the music. And I fucking hate that so much. Like I've even seen YouTube videos where there's classical music playing beneath, whatever the guy's talking about. And I'm like, I'm just focusing straight on classical music. So, oh, I've heard this Brahms symphony before. He should have chose something better. Like, and then I'm just taken out of like it's totally distracting. I hate it so much. Like I wish everyone would have that intuitive approach where you want to complement things rather than being totally its own individual expression that where the it doesn't really 100% mesh with the other element that's going on, whether it's someone speaking or there's a visual representation of something happening. And I like even in like mainstream movie productions, there's that issue for me. Like it just totally takes me out of the experience of watching a movie, and I'm just focusing straight on the soundtrack. Like, well, I wish they wouldn't fucking put this fucking nostalgic bullshit in this movie or anything like that. Like,
Yeah, it's important to have. So like with Project Warlock, they're giving away both soundtracks. I think they're gonna give away the second soundtrack, and I won't voice my opinions on that. I have opinions about giving away music that I'll leave untouched for now. But with the upcoming game that I'm in talks with a publisher, and the developers are making great headway. There's I said, well, let's sell the soundtrack because it's a quality item that should be able to stand alone by itself. It complements the game, but it has to be good enough to create a listening experience as well. So it's kind of like walking this tightrope. You don't want to be overbearing, but you also want to make sure it's not just like ambient noise or whatever. So it's a lot of fun. It's challenging to kind of not know where you are in the creative process and just figure it out on the way, get off of the formula.
do you feel it's limiting in some ways? Like, whereas, if you're black metal, it's the total experience is just the music itself. Whereas with composing soundtracks and, things of that nature, you're just a partial part of that expression. Do you feel it's limiting in that aspect, or do you feel like it's a fun challenge to take on, like to, create something that heightens the experience?
It's a good challenge, I think. I try to not cater too much directly to what the developers really want. I mean, I'll lean towards it a little bit, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And if they like it, good. If they don't, good. You know, uh, yeah, it's interesting to say the least. I followed a formula for a long time where I could just grind out songs and put out albums, and it's like this is cool, but am I growing? Am I getting to be a better musician by doing this? So
Right. And also, I think the difference between you and Brett here is that Brett just composes, his music and he licenses it out. Like the WWE and NFL has picked up some of his music, whereas you have a specific project that you're working on. Brett, so what's your kind of approach to just creating like this quote
Mm.
unquote
Well,
universal type of expression that can be applied to many different mediums?
yeah. Well, first let me say that your favorite soundtrack probably is The Exorcist. right? Because it's perfect. There is no soundtrack. So I thought that was, that's my favorite, all-time favorite horror movie by far. And the fact that it has no soundtrack um, speaks to the writing and the directing of that movie. But that's on the side. Okay. Um, your microphone, Jason, is muted. No. Okay. Well.
No, I'm sorry. Did you want me to chime in on The
Oh
Exorcist?
no, no, no. I wasn't sure.
The pea soup, yeah, that stuck with me with the throwing up scene.
Yeah.
But
No. It's just
I
it's
haven't
funny.
seen The Exorcist since I was a kid, and I really can't talk about the soundtrack because I don't remember. But
Yeah, that's the point. There was none because you were saying about how soundtracks can get in the way, and if they do, like they make bad choices for the sound. So, and I think there was supposed to be a soundtrack for The Exorcist. I don't remember the whole history, and I'm not, a history buff on The Exorcist, but I remember that it was a choice, and they said let's just not have a soundtrack, and it just worked out.
well,
It was,
fucking Nile has sampled some of the Exorcist Part Two on like the amongst the catacombs of
Mhm.
Neferka. They'd sampled that one scene with the lady screaming. I'm like, oh, that's from Exorcist Two. That's what the inverse of a soundtrack where
Yeah,
it takes a
exactly.
movie sample. But
So
what Luke was speaking about, like when you're trying to create like universal trailer music that can be applied to many different mediums,
yeah,
do you have a specific approach to that that can appeal to the most people, or
yeah.
like,
So it, it's it's different in the sense that I'm not working most of the time. I'm not working with a visual, right? I'm just first. This is just for trailer music. For cue music, the stuff that's on like an NFL Network, the stuff that's in the background is a different beast. It's a different animal than trailer music. And trailer music, the music is actually extremely important in the storytelling. And that's what a trailer is supposed to do. It's supposed to tell a story, a micro story, and the music should be telling that story with the visuals. But as you said, a lot of times when I'm doing these trailer tracks, I don't actually have a visual. What I'm trying to think of is a style or maybe a type of movie that it would fit in. So if I'm working on a couple of tracks and I'm in my head, I'm saying, okay, this is a sci-fi movie, and it could either be like a psychological sci-fi movie, or it could be a thought-provoking sci-fi movie, or is this a horror movie going to be for a horror movie, or is this going to be a superhero type of movie? So what you're doing is you're trying to write something that's generic enough where it would fit a couple of different scenarios, again because you don't know what the visuals are, but at the same time you don't want it to be so cliche that you're listening to it and the person watching this just gets bored. They've heard it before and they're not even sure what movie it's for because it's the same sound as 20 other or 50 other trailers. So you're trying to be unique. At the same time, you're trying to be somewhat generic. It's like 80% generic and 20% unique. And it can be difficult because I don't have that visual in front of me. So I just have to kind of put that in my head and work for the style that I'm working in and saying, okay, this is what I think is going to be on the screen at the time, as opposed to seeing exactly. And that also goes for hit points. So hit points are a scene changes, and you want to have some musical element that accents that change. So if you're doing the music first, you can put those accents any way you want. You got to put enough of them in there, knowing that they're going to have to change the scene. But if you get something to write to it, then you have to actually change your tempo, uh, and you have to work with the visuals that you have so that your musical elements go with it. So it can be easier and it could be harder depending on which way you're looking at it.
yeah, kind of like you do the Hans Zimmer brom brom broms, and then like then this little slow passage of strings for
Right.
the scene change. Yeah, it's really interesting. I really haven't put much thought into that aspect of trailer music. And it's totally true. Like you watch a trailer and it's all these epic sounds, and then it gets something gets more serious, and then the music slows down and
Well,
more dramatic.
Well, I'll tell you in trailers, when you're watching a trailer, especially not necessarily like for a Netflix trailer, but even for a Netflix trailer, most trailers, I'll say, are not one track. there could be 3, 4, 5, 10 different tracks in a single trailer. So if you're listening carefully, which most people aren't, they're just, you're just watching the whole trailer and getting absorbed, which is what it's supposed to do, right? You're not supposed to really listen. It's supposed to just make you feel a certain way, energetic. And the music actually will be changing as the scenes are changing. And typically those are not from the same trailer tracks. They'll have 8, 10 tracks, and they're picking out different elements of each track and putting it in there. So that sometimes you get that different. So each track itself doesn't necessarily have to run through different emotions, because they'll just pick 5 different tracks that have 5 different emotions.
That makes sense. Especially, if there's a big action movie or something like that with a lot of different types of scenes happening, you want different soundtracks to portray what's happening. But I've been trying to I watched a couple of MCU movies past couple of weeks, and it's really the fucking chaotic visuals that really ruin. I mean, the soundtracks suck too in those movies. No offense if you like them, but the I think the strongest trait of this movie is how much color and movement is portrayed on the screen, and with that, it's like Marshall McLuhan made the statement that the medium is the message, and what that medium is conveying with all the color and chaotic movement is just visual representation of just a lot of like Fahrenheit 451, like just this nonsense of
Mhm.
colors and movement. No offensive, you're into stuff like that, but
No, I actually I can't stand. I hate shaky cam, hate it, and I really hate the quick edit in a movie. I can deal with it in a trailer because it's supposed to show you a lot of stuff and get you excited. But in a movie, I don't want to watch 2.5 hours of constant cutting and editing and never actually seeing what's going on. That actually annoys me also.
hey Luke, have you ever done any trailer music for video games or anything like that, like in addition to doing the game soundtracks?
Yeah. I have. I think I did all the trailers for Project Warlock 2. One of them was built around gameplay footage and also commentary by John Romero, who created Doom and Wolfenstein and all those games back in the early '90s. He did a limited edition of the original Project Warlock, so I got to have some music with him. Um, which was super cool. But at the same time, I did not have the luxury of working with any sort of visual stimulus. Luckily, when I submitted the tracks, the team was able to do a little editing on the back end that produced the trailer, and they made it come together pretty good. I think they screwed up the soft piano part because it was a little too freaking quiet, but it was a contrast between like piano and death metal and pushing and pulling back and forth. And it's a lot of fun, but most of the time I haven't really had a whole lot of visual cues to work off of. And I get it. There's time constraints and stuff, and everybody's working towards whatever it is. But if I did have that, I could probably fashion something um, a little bit more effective. I did a lot of editing and audio post production for an independent film a year or so ago. A friend of mine in Tucson's a filmmaker, and I didn't do any trailers that I recall. My memory is kind of shot with as busy as I've been in the last 2 years, but um, I did have to edit like a lot of sound effects, which is something that I haven't got into. Like there was a potter's wheel in the movie, and when you turn off a potter's wheel, it makes a sound that where it declines and then switch. And I spent like 2 weeks on that freaking potter's wheel. And I was like, man, I don't think this is what I want to be doing, but it was a good experience nonetheless. So.
I see. So, um, I have some questions. I have something to say that may make someone uncomfortable. Um, I'm talking about the listeners, not you guys, but a few years ago, like with GoCraft, it's all piano music, right? and I had been in a couple of movies, people wanting to borrow, some of my tracks from GoCrack, piano music, blah blah blah, and there was one guy who hit me up, or he just messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I just heard your music in a snuff film." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I don't even know what the name of the snuff film is or anything like that, but um, that's something completely unintended where my music ended up being in a snuff film. And if you're unfamiliar with what a film is, it's like a movie that portrays like real graphic violence, including murder. So, um, but yeah, supposedly there's a there's a video out there, Go Crash, and some snuff film. But um, sorry to bring that up. That's just unintended of creating, like music like that. But um, I do have a huge praise for both of you. Instead of selling out with your bands, which a lot of projects do, like you listen to Dimmy Borgir, Rotting Christ, all that shit. They dumb down their fucking music to make a fucking dollar. Behemoth, all that. Cradle of Filth, even the arguments made that they started out wanting to do that, but I feel that you guys doing, these extracurricular soundtrack projects, whether it's trailer music, video game music, whatnot, is way more honest than actually dumbing down your music to be accessible to the masses. So, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like keeping your integrity with your metal projects, whereas where it comes to soundtracks, trying to be most appealing?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, thank you for the compliment. Um, yeah. When I'm doing Sorrow or JID, Journey into Darkness stuff, that is, I'm doing exactly what I want, and there's no visual. It's all emotion, right? Those tracks are written. They just have to, make me feel like, I don't know, like a out of body experience like that. When I'm writing those tracks, it's all about making what I think is just the song that I want to listen to. And there's no other extraneous inputs into that at all. When I'm doing a trailer, what I liked about the trailer music was is I can stick, or even some of the cues that I write, some of the background stuff, I can stick a little bit of that darkness in there. And actually, I've been told this many times now by publishers, your stuff is too dark, which I find humorous because to me, that's not like, it's like a light shade of gray and they're saying it's black. But that is not what I'm doing. Like when I'm writing these cues or trailer tracks, they're a specific purpose. And the bottom line is they're for commercial purposes. They're not writing for people to listen to on Spotify or for me to get my angst out or to get emotions across, like to get my deep feeling emotions out. They're, in the case of a trailer, it's you're trying to sell a product. And in a case of a cue, you're trying to bring some type of emotion to a scene without getting in the way of the scene. So they're completely separate to me. When I'm writing, the way I approach writing for either one is completely different. But the cue and the trailer stuff at least does allow me to put a little bit of my put the stuff that I like, kind of put it in there. You can listen to it and say, yeah, I can hear, I can hear myself in those tracks. But yeah, the other stuff, the JID and the Sorrow stuff, like that's, that has nothing to do with commercial output whatsoever. That is just stuff that I need to get out of me.
That's very cool. Like so many people, they try to pander, even with their black metal and all that, and I hate that, because you're compromising your expression, be most, accessible in that regard. How about you, Luke? Do you feel that you're keeping your integrity by keeping your black metal in your truest form, of expression, whereas with soundtracks, you're able to make a little bit of money on the side and make appealing music? I mean, because I feel it's way more honest. It's commendable, instead of compromising your actual, like, true black metal expression.
Yeah, and I'll echo Brett as well. Thank you for the compliments. I was thinking about it here. Again, you're an accomplished musician, you're a classical pianist, you know your way around a lot of cerebral stuff between philosophy and the piano. So getting a compliment from you is, I don't take it lightly. So thank you again for that. You're much more well versed in, you know, you've heard a lot more death metal and black metal and can speak about it intelligently than I can. I When I started my studio in 2006, I started paying taxes on it. I was keeping receipts, and I bought a microphone stand. I wrote it off my taxes. That's going on 20 years ago. And I would take whatever client had 20 bucks in his pocket. And most of the time, it was a kid that wanted to do hip hop, in my hometown, and I knew how to make beats because I knew how to program shit. And I'd sit there and be like, well, you're gonna pay me by the hour, and you're gonna come over, and I'm gonna sit here and make beats, and I'm not just gonna sell you a beat for 20 bucks, whatever. So anymore, I don't do that shit. And I quit doing that years ago. I got tired of working with bands and spending all my time wrapped up in somebody else's creative process, because their creative process is a lot different than mine. I like to work alone. I like to get in the flow, and I like to be creative, get something done, and move on. I don't reminisce and ruminate about what I could have done differently and look back to my glory days about, oh, that one album I put out was so fucking popular 20 years ago. I don't really care. I'm just chasing the next carrot. And I'm aware of that. But I if somebody doesn't like my stuff and they don't want to use it, that's cool. I've done pop music, I've done kids music, I've done country music. I don't care to do it anymore. If somebody came to me right now and they said, if you'll write a country music album for this video game, I would be a lot more inclined to do it if it was for a video game or like a Wild West shooting game like Red Dead Redemption or something, than I would if it was just a guy who wanted to go out and play country music. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just more into video games. I'm more into that adjacent space of it. I don't know. I'm kind of fiercely independent, and I don't really need the money to compromise my integrity. But at the same time, it's like I understand why people do it. If that's their thing, I'm not going to hate on them. One of my favorite bands to this day, all growing up, was Butthole Surfers, and people gave them a lot of shit when they finally got like a platinum album, right? They did an album and they got popular, and people were like, oh, you sold out. You guys sold out. You're on Capitol Records. And they're like, fuck you. You go live in a van for 30 years, broke, you know? And I get it. Yeah, get paid. If that's all you're going to do, if that's your talent, get paid at some point and then do what you want. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
That's cool, very cool. Like, I can't give you guys enough praise for actually, staying true to yourselves with the black metal expression while also venturing out. Like, a good friend of mine has always kind of echoed, it's like, what you should do for musicians who are worth a damn is to always have like your bullshit Metallica project, to reach as many people as possible while staying true with your main expression. But that has emerged for most people. They want their Metallica as their main expression, and I feel that you're what you guys are doing is way more honest. Which leads me to another question, actually. Have you guys broken even doing soundtracks? I know Luke, you in the studio, like recording projects and all that. Have you guys broken even with your? Obviously, there's a lot of expenses that come along with building studios, mastering the art of VSTs and all that. Anyone can jump in.
Uh, no, very, very simply no. I have a lot of money invested in my software and my hardware and the gear, but I've been doing the production thing. I'm going to say for about 4 years, and it takes minimum of 5 years, basic from the people that I've spoken to and the people that I'm friends with. You have a good 3 to 5 years before you start to see any real money coming in. So at this stage, I'm not. I'm chugging along, and I'm doing it full force. It's full time for me, and hopefully one day I will catch up. But for right now, yeah, I'm certainly way behind.
How about you, Luke?
I would guess no, probably not at all. I've never sat and done the math. Like I said, I started a long time ago. I don't think I ever had like a super profitable year. And having all the equipment, it's just like if I factored in all the college and stuff that I've paid into it, no. But I'm not going to let that slow me down. It's part of my identity at this point. I'm in it for the long haul.
All right, and that leads me to the next question, which is kind of a downer, from your responses there. What's your advice for people interested in creating soundtracks? Like, I mentioned that I've heard quite a few other musicians say they would love to make video game soundtracks and all that, movie soundtracks. However, they they don't have like the organization skills that you guys have, where you're able to actually focus and hone in on the craft. It's more of like a dreamy fantasy that they have. What is any advice you have for aspiring producers of that kind?
Uh, I would say, to be realistic, that you got to get into this because you love it. I mean, it's cliche, but that's the bottom line, is that there's a lot of very, very talented people out there. And there's a lot of people who, and most of them are not making money or very, very little money. It's a very, very long-term investment. It's a marathon. You're going to have to spend a couple of years of, learning the craft of how to compose music that is specifically for commercial. And you have to get it out of your system that, yeah, you're selling your art, and that's why I try to differentiate my metal stuff from this stuff, and that you can make it, you can make a living out of it, you can do it, but you have to put the time in there. It's again cliche. There's no quick fix to this, and you're going to have to learn a lot. The production now, you have to have top-notch production. You have to have mixing skills. You have to have writing skills, and you have to have business skills, and you have to have some social skills. You gotta network with people. You gotta become friends with them, genuinely friendly with them, and you have to seek out advice. And you got to be humble. And yeah, I mean, I guess those are the points that I would say is, but it's not going to be easy at first. You're going to be doing a lot of songwriting, and there's not going to be much movement. It's going to be very, very slow.
I know Luke is very familiarized with doing all the legwork behind the scenes. So the grueling aspects of networking, all that, I believe Luke is very familiarized with. Do you have any other sentiments you want to add on, Luke, to what Brett said about, don't think you're just going to make it straight out of the gate. It's a long game.
Yeah, it's definitely a long game. And I haven't made it to the top of the rock and roll pyramid by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, I've talked to people who have, and they all say the same shit. It's if you're gonna do it, don't stop and give it all you got. Don't give up and stuff like that. Kind of what Brett said. There's a lot of talented people out there. Isaac Asimov, one of my favorite quotes from him was that, um, talent is very common, but the willingness to use that talent and push and push and push to have the tenacity to make it in that field is very rare. The tenacity has to be there, and um, talent can come later. I don't consider myself talented. I just consider myself undefeatable. I fucking don't care if you think my music sucks. I'll do it again and I'll get better. I'm willing to fail, and um, I never got hung up on thinking um, that I needed a better piece of equipment. Oh, I don't have the right microphones. I don't have the right preamps. I don't have the right keyboard. I don't have the right piano skills like my man Jason. Listen to Jason. I can't play like that. There's no way, right? I just don't think like that. And that's probably been the one thing that's got me to whatever level of success I'm at now, whatever that might look like on an infinite scale. So
Luke, I am a freak. So yeah, don't try to compare yourself with me. Like I'm different, and like people say I'm like autistic. I don't think I'm autistic, but I have like a really intense focus when I get into things. So don't feel, you
Awesome.
know, trying
You
to
have to
put
have
yourself.
that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you got to have it. You got to be able to focus on something and not get distracted by the other shiny objects. You know, growing up, I mean, all the best talented, most guys that could just fuck up a guitar beyond me, man, just burn the shit up, play the shit out of drums. They were distracted, wine, women, and song. You know, it was drugs and booze and women and other shiny objects that took up all their time. And I get it. We're mammals, but at the same time,
Speaking of which, we have not mentioned any penises in this episode yet. So
well, I all I'm
if,
saying
if
is that
if you've
you
listened
gotta.
to the podcast lately, there's been a lot of penis jokes. So yeah,
I'm gonna
there's
have to
a
check
penis
out the back
reference for
catalog
today.
then. Yeah, it's I don't know. I the advice is just be willing to fail. You know what I'm saying? Just don't care what other people think. Just keep moving forward. You know, I love to absorb the knowledge of people around me. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to somehow stick to your guns and compromise a little bit. You know, you got to be able to know when to do the right dance, I guess. So,
So Kanye West once said to I forget it's a British interviewer. He said, "Don't take inches off my dick."
mhm.
How would you equate that in a metal sense, where it's like keeping your integrity, like you don't want anyone to compromise your integrity? What you don't want anyone to take inches off your dick, right, Sleepwalker?
No, no, probably not. Not on paper, not in practice, not in theory. I would say that you know, if somebody wants to pigeonhole me, that's kind of the thing with metal is that you know, if you're doing metal, you think, well, that guy only does metal. That's all he's going to do, and that's what he's good at. But I mean, being able to produce music is very important in the first place. And if you listen to a lot of the early black metal I've done, it's unproduced. I don't get hung up on that. And are we talking about? So give me the metaphor again. Don't take inches off my dick. Does that mean
You know,
compromise my integrity or
that's
help
for
me grow?
Kanye West and like his culture that having a big dick is part of like your manliness and your expression of being a man and all that. So I'm trying to equate that in a black metal sense. Um, obviously the dicks are a lot smaller in black metal circles, obviously because there's not many African Americans in black metal, but I'm so glad we got to work in some penis stuff here. Um, not that I'm gay or anything, is I just ongoing joke that we have
Well,
with this
you don't
podcast,
want
but
prostate jokes, do you?
no, but no
I'm not
cross
that
the
age.
sticks, no cross the sticks. I mean, I love Cross the Sticks by Sinister, but yeah, sorry. But yeah, what it means is you don't want to take away the true essence of your being in that regard. You can talk like Ernst Jünger. Like I've wrote so many papers lately that where it comes to philosophy and like true ontology of being and being authentic is really important for a lot of thinkers. Not saying Kanye West is an important thinker in that regard, but um, I see it in black metal a lot. A lot of people want to stay true to their sound and their expression, and they don't want that to be taken away from them from what
Well,
Nietzsche would call the herd morality or anything like that.
well, at some point you have to also think, okay, I'm staying true to my vision. I'm staying true to myself. But the self is not a fixed entity. The self is a ever changing uh, entity. If you are fixed and rigid in your position, static and unmovable, then you're delusional. You absolutely are fucking delusional because it's like, oh, I only do black metal. I only do lo-fi black metal. And if you pigeonhole yourself, you're not opening yourself up to other opportunities to grow as a musician, I think. If you have a idea of something you might want to do, and that changes 10 years from now, I think it's just natural. People change, your chemistry changes, your neurology changes, you know? And to try
Well,
and force,
Heraclitus, you never step into the same river twice.
right,
Everything's
yeah,
always in a state of flux, which the deeper meaning is, your ontology, your being itself is always in a state of flux. Like, it's like, I saw a funny meme the other day. I was like Socrates or Nietzsche or someone is like, no, it was Tony Soprano being with his therapist, and he was like, all this fucking self-knowledge, what has it fucking gotten me? Just
right.
fucking paradoxical and wonderful. I love it so much. Like, yeah, the more you learn, the more you don't really know anything. Uh, like Socrates said, I know that I know nothing. It's
Sure.
That's when you get really far into philosophy and you start realizing, yeah, everything's just bizarre mishmash of stuff, and the best hope we can have is just elaborating upon reality, what we intuitively know is true, and expressing that outwardly. That's what I consider true philosophy, at least, illuminating the world essentially. But Brett, do you have any comments on that, or
I
um,
mean,
any penis
I
jokes?
would, I mean, listen, it's all the cliches with, stay true to yourself. But I think what the heart of that is, you have, you have to, as they say, you have to go to bed at night, and you want to feel good about yourself, and you want to produce something. When I'm writing music, the metal stuff, I'm writing Journey into Darkness or the death metal, whatever, black metal. That music, like, I have to love it. When I write it and I finished writing it, like I was saying, you have like an out of body experience. It just gives a certain feeling, and I need to have that. And if I'm writing other stuff just to make someone else happy, at some point that becomes a chore. It becomes hard for me to do, and I'm not actually enjoying it. So staying true to yourself is just a way of making yourself happy, and not like superficially giving someone a smile while inside you're hurting. So I think that's, to me, is what staying true to yourself actually means, is you actually feel happiness with what you're doing internally, regardless of what's going on externally.
That leads me into the last question that I had for today. And you guys are welcome to continue the conversation. If you have anything else to add. But what are your main feelings of accomplishment doing soundtrack work? I'll start with Brett. What
Um,
what what do you really feel accomplished with? I know, obviously, seeing your music in the WWE and the NFL, that's a milestone to have. It's like, yeah, fucking my music's there. It's in this trailer, and it's fucking cool that they're able to utilize it in such a fucking impactful way. But what's your main like feeling of accomplishment? Do you feel like
well,
the process of creating music itself is more important? Like, you feel
it's
more accomplished in the process or the results?
um, I, I guess a little bit of both. And I'm going to say, listen, for anyone who's an artist, for anyone who's ever written a piece of poetry or a piece of music or a film script or something, we're all, and being honest, we're all looking for some type of acknowledgement. We're putting ourselves out there and we're saying, hey, this is something we have to say or do, and we want other people to acknowledge that and say, and give you a pat on the back and say, hey, good job. Maybe not every single person, but most of us. And having a little bit of that acknowledgement by someone using my music is is just a good feeling, of saying someone said, like, I went through the process of writing it, and I was excited about writing it, and I enjoyed it. When the song is finished, even if it's not used, I'll listen to it and I'll like it, and I'll say, hey, I like this. So it makes me feel good. But to have someone pat you on the back and say, we're going to use it, and in fact, not only use it, but you're going to make a little bit of money. Believe me, it's not a lot of money. It's very little. It's not much more than streaming with Spotify, where you need a lot to make a little. And it's just that feeling of acknowledgement that you did a good job, and it's a nice little pat on the back. It's like just being an 8-year-old and you bring home a test and they put it on the refrigerator. It's kind of that same feeling, just more as an adult.
I can see like if you really put your heart and soul into something, like through music or poetry or painting and whatnot, and it never received any acknowledgement, and over, you may still keep trying to improve yourself, but if you never receive that feedback, it could be disheartening.
Yeah,
I can
absolutely.
definitely see that. But Luke, how about you? What's your greatest feeling of accomplishment? Being on like a PlayStation game, and it's like, hey, I have a PlayStation at home, and here's my music on a PlayStation game, or like, what do you feel like with soundtracks that really makes you feel accomplished, Luke?
Um, I think it kind of goes back to a flow state where if you are doing something, any activity that can provide you immediate feedback can be conducive to a flow state. So, I talk about getting in a flow state with writing a song, and time stops, and you've spent, it feels like 15 minutes, but it's been 3 hours. If you're getting feedback from your social environment, whether it's friends, family, or contractors who want to hire you, um, contractees that want to put your work somewhere, that's that feedback. And it, on a very subconscious level, I think it is more encouraging, which also may allow you to remove barriers of self-doubt, whether you're conscious of it or not, and um, produce better music on a large enough spectrum. I think that it does help that success begets more success. Iron sharpens more iron. So uh, I, I've enjoyed being able to work with other people. I haven't tried to work with a band in a long time, and I found myself a lot more accomplished when I stopped doing that. But um, it's nice to have, it's nice to see it for me because it's something I always wanted. It's like you said earlier in the podcast, it's a lot of people's dreams to work on video games, but they don't have the drive. And somehow, luckily, I've had just enough to get over a hurdle. And once you're there, you can kind of look back. I have the the benefit of being 44 years old, and I have a lot of hindsight. It's like, well, look at all the things I've done that have led me to this point, big or small. So it all adds up, and it feels good. I don't feel bad about any of it. So
Damn, you're 44, just now starting on your undergrad. I'm joking. I'm
yeah, no
joking.
shit.
I'm
Yeah.
joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, I know. It's like my wife's 45, she's doing her master's, and it's like we've always gone to school and studying audio. The people say, "Well, what are you going to use a psychology degree for?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm using it right now talking to you." I can't not use it, you know. Your brain's always using something that you pick up in that kind of study. It's like you mentioned Heraclitus earlier. That's, I mean, it's just how we live our lives. It's always there, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
I'm the
currently
old
have a
man in the room.
4.0 GPA in philosophy grad school, so yay me. And
that's
yeah, I've read so much Schopenhauer that my brain is probably like the most antisocial thing in the world. But here I am doing a podcast being super social. So there's an element of Jason, there's a duality where there's the super secret side that's super philosophical, and then there's the outward side, which is very accommodating to everyone else. But do you guys have anything else before we wrap up today? Like anything that you would really like to elaborate on that we've already mentioned, or anything that we haven't mentioned yet? Like anything that you feel that we missed out on so far?
No, I think you had some great questions as always, and I think we covered a lot of ground here. So thank you.
Well,
I
thank you,
greatly
Mr.
had a
Brett
blast.
Clarin. I totally winged it today, and I got a good buzz from the alcohol. I know you guys are straight edge. I miss my British wingman, but he's
We miss him too.
yes, we all miss him, and we should all do another one sometime with him again. Different subject, of course, but yeah. How about you, Luke? Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, check out Project Warlock on Steam. It's coming out of early access finally, and check out a game called Tamara, Tamara on Steam. That'll be done by the end of the year. It's a horror survival game. That's what I'll be working on the rest of the year. But always a pleasure, Jason. And I appreciate your time and continued support. I think Goatcraft All for Naught came out what, like 10 or 15 years ago? I saw it the other day.
2013, so 12 years ago.
Man,
Yeah, did you know most of that album was improv?
that's awesome, man.
I just hit record and started just like, I'm gonna create the darkest shit ever. And I did it.
As
But
soon as I
yeah,
heard it, I knew what was up.
yep, good times, good times. But yeah, I'm working on black metal now. Um, that Morphophallus Titanium, which will be coming out on iVoid Hanger Records perhaps this year. We'll find out.
Cool. I don't know.
But
Great.
yeah, I have 6 songs, about to work on the seventh, and I mean, I have 6 black metal songs, and then I also have like this huge piano track. Actually, it's a classical piece I wrote back in 2017 called Convergent Morphogenesis, and it all the bells and whistles are there. Um, but yeah, that will be in there. I'll probably do some other keyboard stuff and probably write another black metal song. I do have a really phenomenal vocalist coming over next weekend to record vocals. I'll stick them in the closet with a microphone and record them that way. But he has a degree, or I think he went to college for anthropology, and he knows a lot about like Greek and Roman mythology, and which will be really useful for the project. But there's that. But I'm sorry for talking about my own stuff, but
All
really
right.
great to have you both today. I will be sharing links down in the description of both Luke and Brett's music for soundtracks, whether it's trailer music, video game music, all that. You will have a link to check it all out. Brett he's really interesting with delving into the WWE. It's super professional sounding, by the way. And of course Luke doing the video game music with the boomer shooters and all that. Very, very cool stuff. So great to have you back on, and you're always welcome back.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jason.